Have you ever noticed how caregiving can make even the most grounded person feel unsafe? Not physically, but emotionally and spiritually. Linda admitted something many of us feel, but rarely say out loud. She told me, I keep anticipating all the bad things. I did too much reading and it's all awful. Maybe you have felt that too, staying up late at night, reading articles, trying to prepare, and yet ending up more anxious than assured. You want to be ready, but instead you feel less secure with every new piece of information. In our conversation, we talked about how to stop living like disaster is around every corner and to start walking with dignity, truth, and trust, one day at a time. If you've been bracing for the worst and losing the steadiness God offers us right now, I want you to know you do not need to do this alone. That's why we created the Christian Dignicares Society. This is a one-time investment into a lifetime community for Bible-believing Christians who want to trade their fear and uncertainty for confidence and order. Inside you will find faith-informed guidance, live support, and connection with other Christians who are understanding of this journey. For less than $100 investment, you can take your next faithful step towards lasting security and peace. You can join us today at the link in the show notes. Hey, Christian Care Companion. Welcome back to Dementia Caregiver Support for Christians. This is the podcast where we teach Bible-believing Christians how to stay steady in their faith while walking this journey with somebody with dementia. Around here, we will talk about all of the struggles that wear you out, the not knowing what to say, the feeling like you're stretched in every direction, and the carrying of our fear and guilt that just sometimes don't go away. Today's episode is one of those heart work conversations about what it really means to stop fearing the future and to start resting in God's security, even as dementia changes everything around you. Now, join me as I talk with Linda in this next episode. Hello, Linda. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I am noticing Richard, he is stuck in the same pair of blue jeans.
Okay, I'm going to ask you the question. Let's imagine it's 6 months from today and your caregiving feels easier. What would that look like for you?
I think maybe I would be less anticipating bad things.
Ooh, tell me what you mean.
I think I did too much reading before I found you. And it's all
Oh,
bad. It's all bad. And I tried to I had quit doing that because I knew it was not good for me. And I also knew if it was on my plate, uh, in some way or other, it had to be good because God is in charge of my
mm,
plate. And
okay,
it's very hard for me to balance that. And
okay,
I bounce into, oh my God, it's going to be horrible,
okay. So, what do you think is standing in your way of getting that thought out of your head?
I'm just innate, inborn aversion to suffering.
You have an innate inborn aversion to suffering? Is that what you
Yes.
I think that's what we all should have. We should have an innate aversion to suffering.
I want to find
And
a way to slow it down or something. And honestly, Richard is not bad. Right.
okay,
This is one little thing I'm noticing with a little bit of more holding back from what I want him to do.
okay,
Up until now, he's been, whatever I'm saying we need to do, we do it.
So we'll get back to the clothing issue here in a second. I think it's a symptom of what you just said.
Okay.
I'd love to, if it's okay, I want to really unpack what you said about that you would less anticipate the bad things. And the reason I want to untangle that for you, Linda, is because I think you've brought up something that is so close to my heart about what I call the normal narrative out in the world about dementia and dementia caregiving. And what the world says about dementia is that because you cannot think, you are losing your autonomy, you're losing your value, you're not the same person, all of these things. And then the world also says, and the books that you would read and the other things that you listen to, I'm going to say it out loud. I hate the 36-hour day book. I think it is a terrible book. I don't think anybody who is a family caregiver of somebody with dementia needs to ever read it. It is negative and not well structured and tells the world tells us it is confusing and there's no order to it. Right? That's the message that the world is telling itself about dementia and dementia caregiving because it's not coming from what God says, right? And then the third part of it is that the world truly tells people to do therapeutic lying, to not tell the truth, to all of these things. And if everything that you have read and heard and listened to and been exposed to comes from that lens, right? Of course, it feels like we are anticipating the worst, right? And I know the following things. I know that Richard is created in the image of God, and because of that, he is a valuable person because he's created in God's image. The challenge for us is because he's now not thinking the way he always did, is we see that change, right? God has known this. God knows that this was going to happen. He doesn't see Richard any less than what he's always seen him. But because Richard cannot do as he always did, we see the difference, right? And it's in that gap that the hurt is, because you know who he has always been able to be, right? Then the second part of it is it follows a very structured order. Even though there are differences in diagnoses, when a person, like I always tell people, I'm like, nobody's surprised when a baby turns into an 18-year-old. Nobody says it's confusing to go from a baby to an 18-year-old. And yet at the same time, everybody says if you've seen one person with dementia, you've seen one person, right? Well, guess what? If you've seen one person, you've seen one person. We're all unique and different. We have different personalities. We have different history. We have different aptitudes. We have different abilities, just God-given innate abilities. My daughter was extremely musical. I have some latent music talent, but I'm not super good at it, right? But I'm very good at other things. We have these innate abilities, but when a person is declining or changing through dementia, we see the behavior, we see the stuff is confusing because we don't have necessarily an easy way to hang our hat on it, right? To understand the process. So I'm going to share with you a very easy way to start, like a super easy, I promise you, it's a very easy analogy to understand the physical changes that people go through. Most of us know a baby growing up to an adult, right? We know what the developmental milestones are because we've had kids, right? We know that we're not going to leave a 9-year-old home alone 24 hours a day, but we could maybe a 16-year-old with certain guidelines, with certain parameters. So I want you to picture that kind of like a airplane taking off, right? So a person is born and their airplane takes off, and that's how we go from birth to fully developed. Then our life is like an airplane, like a flight. Between the airplane and the people on the plane and all sorts of things. And we have turbulence, we have things that happen. And you and Richard are in the cockpit together. You guys are flying your life flight together. He's the pilot of his plane and you're the co-pilot, and then you're the pilot of his plane and he's the co-pilot. When a person starts to live with dementia, what happens slowly over time is the pilot of the plane is no longer able to fly the plane and land it, and you as the co-pilot are starting to take over. Now, the analogy that I want you to think of is landing a plane. And the same way as we went through the developmental process from birth to adulthood, we are now going backwards the other way. Okay? What is superimposed on top of that is Richard's story from birth to his whole life. So home could be when I was 5 years old and I was living in wherever with my mom and dad and my 5 siblings. Or home can be when Linda and I got married. Or home can be where I am today, right now, right? So when the person says home, we don't know what they're meaning, which is why we ask, questions. But all of that to say, a person who is passing away from a terminal disease process. And this is the challenge. Like, if you really talk to people who've been around death and dying, like hospice nurses and things like that, every one of us, if we pass away death is not normal, right? It should not be. But if we pass away in what we now know as a death and dying process, we shouldn't be dying. The wages of sin is death, right? From cancer or from dementia or from any number of physical diagnoses, it's actually the exact same process, just with different diagnoses. Sometimes it's faster. I'll use my friend who just passed away of pancreatic cancer at 78, right? From her diagnosis until when she passed away, which was approximately 3 months, maybe 4, she went through all of the same stages as Richard going through dementia. The difference is it was this long and not this long, right? And so I don't want you to see it as anticipating bad things. I want you to consider understanding that these are just normal changes over time and not anticipate the bad things. We are all going to die unless the Lord comes back. We are all going to pass away. You have a blessing. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you have a blessing in this process, and you get to choose how you want to land Richard's plane.
I do consider it a real blessing if we have walked with the Lord in such a way that I know we're going to be there together wherever it is.
Absolutely.
It doesn't happen every day.
And no, it does not. And then the other,
I consider that a great blessing.
The other thing I want to encourage you, Linda, is sometimes we get we're thinking people, and we know the end of this process is you and Richard are not going to be together for a period of time. And we know that that is going to hurt. We know that. And we are grieving the changes and the loss that we are anticipating is coming. And you can grieve the changes, you can grieve the loss, but you cannot grieve the final separation until when it's done. And anticipating that and worrying about that now means that you're not enjoying what you have right now.
I tell myself that all the time.
I know. I have to tell myself that every single day.
Over something that might never happen.
Exactly. And Richard could wake up. I have a terrible sense of humor. I have one client, he's like, you killed me off again. I'm like, Richard could wake up dead tomorrow morning and none of these things could have happened, right? We don't know. Or Linda wakes up dead tomorrow morning.
Absolutely.
And never sees these things happen. But even if, Linda, the worst happens, you are not alone.
Absolutely. I know that.
Now back to the tangible issue about the clothing, because I promised I would circle around. Think about when your kids were growing up, chronologically, the behavior, loosely called the behavior that you're seeing him exhibit right now, is approximately the age of what? With the clothing. When your kids were little and they did not want to change their clothes, they only wanted to wear the princess outfit. They only wanted to wear the same shoes all the time. Okay. So his thinking processes are around that chronological age. And when your children were, and I'm not saying he is, and I'm not suggesting you treat him like at all, because he is not, but the way we would manage that situation would have been, we structured it. We maybe got 2 of the exact outfits, and we would have one in the closet and we would wash them in between. If he's not wanting to undress, then there's things that we can talk about. But if he's undressing and he's just putting it there and he forgets in the morning, he just puts on the same clothes again, you as his wife can just come in, swoop those up, put them in the wash, put fresh ones out. And then just slowly, gently provide him that level of support to give him the dignity of being clean and looking clean and being able to, our job is to ensure that he looks like he always did, because that helps him to maintain his dignity and his autonomy. Was that helpful?
Very.
Okay.
So I'm doing basically the same thing I did with the Superman underwear.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You were doing the exactly same thing with the Superman underwear. So what's one thing that you will try next week?
I'm not going to feel the least bit bad when I sneak his clothes off and put the clean ones.
No, there's no reason to feel bad about that. Let me reframe it for you. It would be a person should feel worse, not you, but a hypothetical person should feel worse for not doing that, because then it becomes evident to other people that he is struggling. By you doing this for him, you are providing him dignity in that when his kids come and when he goes to the doctor or when his friends come visit, that they cannot overtly see the changes because we are supplementing and supporting him and giving him that dignity as an image bearer.
That is really important to me.
Mhm.
That he maintains his dignity
Yes, ma'am.
as long as he can.
So dignity never goes away. Even when you are providing 100% care, feeding him and wiping his bottoms, his dignity will never go away when you treat him like a dignified person created in the image of God that cannot take care of themselves. We do not think about a child as an infant who needs 100% care as being undignified. We never think that, right? But because your husband's changing, it's easy to feel that he's losing his dignity. He's only losing his dignity if we treat him differently. And what I'm suggesting is that we never treat a person who is an image bearer in God's image as undignified just because they need care. They don't lose their dignity for needing assistance. Neither would you or I if we needed 100% assistance doing everything. We are no less dignified.
Very good.
And that should give you so much comfort.
Does.
Okay, sweet lady. Thank you for this. You made my heart happy that we could talk about this. Thank you for this, Miss Linda. People who are really benefiting from the community are the people who joined earlier on, before they need it, and that have been active and are participating in the community, because then they already know what questions to ask and they have a place to come, and they're not constantly wondering, what do I need to do? How do I need to do it? So people listening are interested in tapping into or learning about the community. I'd invite you to just go to the website, thinkdifferentdementia.com. There's a link for you to schedule a 20-minute call. There's no pressure. I'll serve you regardless of whether you join the community or not. But it is a way for you to take this relationship a little deeper, a little bit more hands-on support, because really the research also shows it's longitudinal support over time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure. I would highly recommend Lizette. She's awesome.
See, I appreciate that endorsement.